And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. And as I promised, we have on the airwaves with us this morning the man, the myth, the legend, the gentleman that kind of creates the pathway to self-reflection and self-evaluation. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you the one, the only, T-Boz.
I'm actually outside with the shovel making a walk for my friends, so I'm creating the pathway. So,
well,
here I go.
I didn't know it was a literal pathway, but hey.
Yeah, it's a little pathway, but thank you for that gracious introduction. Good morning, Mr. Williams, and good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jock, for having me on once again to the Feel Good Show. It's been my honor and pleasure to do this, and welcoming, wow, look at all, I guess with the nice weather and the robins. I hear people are seeing robins out there, not Batman, but robins. Anyway, people are piling in, and George is very busy over there by the door with running and getting chairs. Oh, we have a service dog, the water dishes. Yep, down in the utility closet. Thank you. Yes, man, you can sit right there with your dog. What's your dog's name? Scruffy. Oh, hi, Scruffy. Okay, very good. All are welcome here. So, good morning, everyone. Friday Eve, and before we start, very quickly, I want to mention, last week we did the Salute to Black History Month, and I got a plethora of text messages enjoying that piece. But I was remiss, and the contribution that African Americans, Black Americans have made to music. Next year, boys and girls, we're going to do this as a two-parter because there was way too much what African Americans have contributed to the history and the culture. But the music, there would be no rock and roll today. And if you listen to the last song Jock played by the Outlaws, amazing guitar work, there would be no rock and roll and a lot of popular music if it wasn't for Black Americans, because they invented the blues, which then turned into jazz, which then turned into blues again, which then turned into rockabilly, which then became rock and roll. And so whether you're listening to Megadeth or you're listening to Van Halen, or you're listening to the Beatles, or you're listening to the Partridge Families, okay? It's all been affected. Our American music, we have to thank our brothers, African Americans, for that. So next year, we'll probably delve into that a little bit more. Another quick shout-out, Relay for Life. They had to change the date. It's earlier. It's going to be May 31st, not June 7th and 8th. We'll keep you up to date on that. And it's going to be at 99 Thompson Road in Avon. The school, I guess, had a conflict where we were going to have it, but it's been moved up, and we'll keep you abreast of all of that as we move along. And Jim and I just got back from retreat at Holy Family. Boys and girls, they say you should never tell people what they should do, but I'm going to break my own rule. You should all, once in your life, make a retreat. There is nothing, there will be nothing, there never has been anything like the camaraderie, the message, the enjoyment, the enrichment of a retreat. And we have the best retreat house, one of the only retreat houses right here in Farmington, Connecticut. So check that out when you can. We'll talk more about it as we get closer next year. So let's go over to the coffee. And Stan is right now in an airplane heading to California to see a college buddy. And we have someone who volunteered. It's the very beautiful Peggy, the coffee lady, Boscarino. Thank you so much for coming in. She's married to my good friend Jim. I've mentioned him many times on the show. Good morning, Peggy. And wow, look what she did. You know, that woman's touch, right? And what do we have in the coffee pot today, Peggy? Wow, Holy Family Passionate Blend. They have fair trade coffee there, and they use the money, for a scholarship. So that's what's in the coffee pot. We do have a decaf as well. And then what is our delicious cake we have here? Angel Foods cake. That ties into our theme. And Peggy made her very famous banana cream pie. It's huge. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm going to make a beeline for it right after this show. And this is your own recipe, right? Oh, It looks amazing. So we thank you. And who is the sponsor today? Peggy, the coffee lady. None other than her husband's company, Meadowview Landscaping. He's not looking for work. Okay, he's all set there with that. But he loves the program. He loves the message. His wife was coming in. He said, T-Boz, I'll sponsor the dessert table. So we thank Jim for that. He's out actually doing a project today. We thank Peggy for filling in. George, there's more chairs down the hall. Okay, what we're going to do today is we are going to analyze, decipher the prayer of St. Francis. And so our format tells us that the prayer of St. Francis, it's a prayer that calls us to action. Okay, there's a lot of prayers that we do. We pray, help me do this, help my daughter, help me win the lottery. Okay, but this prayer calls us to action. We're going to see that in a minute. It challenges us. The prayer of St. Francis challenges us to what? To be different, to be more. And I say this many times on the show. Do not use the phrase, this is the way I am, I'm stuck in my ways. You are all a product of construction, of growth, of movement, of becoming better and what God planned for you. Okay, so don't spend, I don't care if you're 70, 80, or 10. Do not, the guy's nodding in the back there next to Big Dave. Don't say that, this is me, I'm stuck in my ways. That is not a good way to live, because then there's never any growth. You're not going to try new things. Right? So the prayer of St. Francis challenges us, all right, in thinking differently and acting differently, because our human ways, and if you want to call it sinful ways, always to kind of go the other way, right? But the prayer of St. Francis challenges us. Let's take a little quick background of our buddy St. Francis, who is my confirmation name. Actually, my twin brother, too, is Francis. And so St. Francis was born in 1181, and he died in 1226 on the 3rd of October. That's why they have Riverton Fair up there has a dedication to St. Francis, because he was the patron saint of animals and nature. So those of you who are naturalists and you like to find spirit and vibes in nature, St. Francis used to call animals his brothers and sisters. He used to sing. There's tradition has it that there was an almond tree that wasn't blossoming. He sang to it, and it bore fruit. Okay, so he was very much seeing God in his creatures. He also said, love the creator, not the creation, but he saw God in everything, the water, the plants, the air, the sun, and in animals. He also was the only saint, or one of the only saints, I believe, that had the stigmata. And the stigmata is he had the marks of Jesus in his hands, where the nails were, where the lance went in his side, and where they nailed his feet to the cross. So he developed the stigmata because of his virtue. He tried to hide the stigmata for years, but he couldn't do it. St. Francis is also started the Franciscan friars, which became the priesthood of Franciscans, and a lot of them are teachers. We had Franciscans in St. Aidan's School in Long Island. But the interesting thing about St. Francis, and some of you hang on to your Christmas tree for this, St. Francis is the one who developed the nativity, and he did the very first live nativity in 1223, 3 years before his death. He had real camels, real goats, real sheep. And the reason why, put your pens down, we'll go over this. The reason why he developed the nativity was because in 1223, remember that date, he said that Christmas was becoming too commercialized. Boom. When we all think that we live in very different times, I have bad news for you. We don't. Okay? Christmas being commercialized in 1223 is the same thing we struggle with today. So we don't live in extraordinary times. We live in times, and we have things that happen, and we have to deal with them. But here we go all the way back over 700 years ago, more than that, 800 years ago, and St. Francis thought that Christmas was too commercial, so he developed the nativity, which you still put under your tree today, to draw your attention to the true meaning of Christmas. So there we go. There's our St. Francis, a little background for him. So let's get rolling, and we start with St. Francis' quote. Here we go. We should seek not to pray, but to become prayer. Boom. We should seek not to pray, but to become prayer. Now I'm going to jump down to the next quote, and I'm going to tie them together. Prayer, and I'll tell you who wrote this in a minute, prayer does not change us. Okay? I'm sorry. Reverse. Prayer does not change things. Prayer changes us, and then we change things. Prayer does not change things. Prayer changes us. Okay? And then we change things. Right back to what St. Francis said about becoming prayer. Are we prayer in the world? Are we showing, I don't care what faith you are or what you believe in, are we showing people by the example of our lives and our hearts that we really are living what we believe? And the person who said that prayer doesn't change things, it changes us, and that we change things, is Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. A lot of us are kneeling and hoping and praying and asking God, please, please, please. The real prayer should be what we're going to hear in St. Francis, is God, use me. What do you want me to do, as Jackie Robinson said last week, to impact the life of another person? That's really what prayer is. Prayer is not reaching up and twisting God's arm. Prayer is putting your arm up and having him twist it. I've given up doing things my way. I now let him do it. And we have a great takeaway at the end, which you're all going to love. So let's start with the first part of the St. Francis prayer. And it says this: Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. So there he goes challenging us. So look at that word. Lord, make me, not them, not they, right? Oh, they should. No, Lord, make me. You're talking to God saying, make me. It's my responsibility. An instrument, a tool, something that he could use in the world based on your gifts and your talents. We talk about that on the show a lot. Make me an instrument of your, then it goes right back to him, of your peace. Peace. He doesn't say, Lord, make me an instrument of success. Lord, make me an instrument of great talent. Make me an instrument of great wisdom. Make me an instrument of your peace. Once we have peace within us, and we are okay with who we are and who we are becoming, then we can have peace, and that peace can then be extended into the world. Father Terry told us on retreat, and it worked out perfect because the retreat theme tied into my topic today. Now, in the Catholic Church, we believe that when the priest consecrates the Eucharist, the bread and wine become the body and blood of Jesus. I'm not telling you to believe that. That's what I believe. All right? So Father Terry told us on retreat, and I'm going to hit everybody here. It's not enough just to take the bread, but you have to be the bread. Right back to what St. Francis said about becoming prayer. And if you're a different Christian denomination, a lot of Protestant religions, Baptists, all of those, they believe in the Word. That's their focus, the Bible, the Word. So I'll say the same thing to you guys. It's not enough to hear the Word, but you got to be the Word. You can't leave it in church. And then I'll go one more category. A lot of you listening are into the vibes of nature. We talked about St. Francis and nature, right? Or you're into vibes, energy source that surrounds you. You get your power from that, right? Well, if you're going to feel the vibe, then be the vibe. Be the bread. Be the Word. Just what St. Francis says, just what Mother Teresa says. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It all goes back to the same thing. So be the bread, be the Word, be the vibe, be the example of goodness and peace, an instrument of peace in the world today. Don't be the symbol of hate and anger and all those things. Let's go down to the next verse. And it says, so then he goes on and he says in the prayer, so where there is hatred, let me sow love. Boom. And I love the word sow. When you sow, and we're almost in the spring, right? When you sow seeds, you just don't throw them in the ground and leave them there. You cultivate them. You water them. You give them your time, right? Well, where there is hatred, St. Francis says, let me sow love. You got to put time into people. You know, we learned a phrase on retreat. It says, attention is gratitude. When you're paying attention to the people you love, when you're paying attention to your children, when you're paying attention to your neighbor, when they're going through a tough time or something, attention is gratitude. We also learned that most marriages end not because of money and not because of sex, but because people don't listen. They don't listen. They hear, but they don't listen. And people spend millions and millions of dollars with therapists and psychiatrists. Why? So someone can listen to them. So where there is hatred, let me sow love. It's 11:30. Jacques, why don't we hit the great sponsors and we'll keep rolling along.
And thank you so much. We appreciate that. We want to take this opportunity to give recognition to our sponsors for allowing us to bring you the quality community radio programming that we're doing at this time. And we want to encourage each and every one of you on our local and live edition of the Feel Good Show on each and every Thursday. If you want to blast off to the community to let everyone know what you're doing, what you're up to, and what you're all about, then we definitely would like for you to do so. You can let your fingers do the walking so we can do the talking, or you can join us right here in the friendly confines of the WAPJ studios. Whatever suits your fancy, because we aim to please, because we understand there could be no community without you in it. So let's make it happen together. So with that being said, we'll take this opportunity to return the show back over to T-Boz for more words of wisdom and moments of meditation.
John 13:34, getting back to that verse about where there is hatred, let me sow love, says, love one another as I have loved you. Imagine that. We have to love other people as much as God has loved us. That's quite a big order, but we're capable of doing it. That's why he told us that. God wouldn't give us things to do if he didn't think we were capable. What did Bob Woodson say last week? It's not that those that are called that are capable. God calls the called and makes them capable. You have the talent. You have the ability. Become what this prayer challenges you to be. We go on to the next verse, and it says, where there is injury, let me sow pardon. Matthew 7:2 says, as you measure, so will you be measured. Boom. Where there is injury, let me sow pardon. Forgiveness. Okay? Letting go. Elton John has a great song, right? And it says, sorry seems to be the hardest word. It is hard to say because we got to humble ourselves. We got to be gentle. We got to be meek. Not something we like to do we? Okay? But we have to do that. And so where there is injury, and they're not talking about broken arm injury, but injury of soul, injury of relationship, injury of love, lack of love. Where there is injury, let me sow pardon. That's how I said when I started with the format. This prayer challenges us. Okay? This prayer is asking us to bring it up a few notches. All right? And so we go right back to our original St. Francis quote, become prayer. Become prayer. We go on to the next verse, and it says, where there is doubt, let me sow faith. Where there is doubt, faith. First Peter says in chapter 3, verse 15, sanctify the Lord in your hearts. Now listen to this word, share with any man or every man that asks, with meekness and gentleness and kindness. Where there is doubt, let me show faith. The problem with a lot of us, we're trying to share our faith, but we're hitting people over the head with the Bible. Okay? They're not at that point yet. It says, let me sow. Again, going back to that metaphor of the little plant in the ground. Where there is doubt, faith. There was a great song in 1968, and it said, "They'll know we are Christians by our love." It doesn't say they'll know we are Christians by our intellect. It doesn't say they'll know we are Christians because we can quote every verse in the Bible. It doesn't say they'll know we are Christians because we set up tables for the church picnic. It says they'll know we are Christians by our love. So the way you could bring people to faith, it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with us. If we practice the love, or like these other people, the vibes, and we exhume that goodness, that meekness, as St. Peter tells us, then we could share our faith gently in meekness and let the people come to the trough, like we say here. Leave on the shelf what you don't like, take what you do. So, but a lot of us are so convinced that we're right that we're hitting people over the head with the Bible. They don't need to be hit over the head. You know what they need to be? Like my friend Rob said to me yesterday, they need to be loved. That's simple. We try to make it too complicated. Next verse, and this is a great scripture, a great quote by St. Francis, and it goes right back to where there is doubt, faith. St. Francis says, "The deeds you do may be the only sermon someone hears today." Ba-boom. The deeds we do may be the only sermon that someone will hear today. What is St. Francis talking about? Action. Be prayer. Be the bread. Prayer doesn't change things. It changes us. You are the only sermon that someone's going to hear. So instead of telling them what St. Peter said and what St. Paul said, just be what St. Paul said. Just be what Jesus said. Be the sermon. My late wife, whose birthday is coming up on Sunday, she would have been 66. She died 10 years ago, the most wealthiest woman I know. Why? Because where she worked at Benchmark, they loved her. She couldn't tell you St. Peter from Peter, Paul, and Mary. But you know what? She loved. She loved her residents. She gave of herself. And though she didn't pass away with bank accounts full of money, she's one of the wealthiest women I know. Because through her love, people loved her. She was the sermon for a lot of those elderly residents years ago at Benchmark. The only sermon that they would hear. We go on to our next verse, and it says, let's see what we got here. Okay, good. So I just want to do this before we do the next verse. John Bunyan says this: "A heart with no words is better than words with no heart." Boom. What are we saying out in the world? Are we just mimicking words that we hear? Are we just uttering things, right? Didn't JFK tell us last year with the Takeaway show that just don't utter words, but to live by them? Well, that's what this gentleman is saying right here, okay? It's better to have a heart with no words than words with no heart. And there are some people listening. You know who you are. I'm not going to say who you are. You're living the Bible. Don't read the Bible. It'll mess you up. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because in your words and in your action and in your deeds, you have a lot of heart. You are prayer. And this prayer of St. Francis is really all about that, is being an example, being what we can be to other people, and bring the light to them. Next line: "Where there is despair, let me sow hope." Hope is endurance, right? In Romans, St. Paul tells us, be joyful in hope. Be joyful in hope. We're going to talk about the word joy in a couple of seconds. Be joyful in hope. A lot of you guys are waiting for things. You're hoping for things. But be joyful in that hope. And for those of us, people who are in despair, let us sow hope. Let us sow that hope. Let's give people an idea that better days are coming. And maybe that diagnosis will change. And maybe that x-ray is wrong. I'm not talking about false hope, but real hope. Let's lift people. Let's get under them and edify them and embrace them and empower them. We're too busy shaking our heads and dragging our head on the ground. Be prayer. Be the bread. There's people out there hungering and waiting for what you guys can bring them. But where there's despair, instead of saying, yeah, well, that's the way it is. Yeah, you know, I know a friend of mine, he had that. No. Give them hope. Pray with them. Talk to them. Listen to them. Listening. Key. Next phrase. Where there is darkness, let me sow light. And what does it say in Matthew? Jesus says, chapter 5, verse 14, you are the light of the world. Everyone in this room, everyone listening. Light, just think of that. It's not saying you are the talent of the world. You are the brains of the world. You are the light, because light dispels darkness. Light fills, right? Isn't it beautiful this time of year? The days are longer. You just feel like getting up and doing something. Why? Because the light warms you. The light guides you. Jock talked about pathways when he first introduced me. The light shows the pathway. Each and every one of you here can be that light. So where there is darkness in people's lives, where there might have been, they're widowed, or maybe they might have had an illness, or maybe they're struggling financially, or maybe they haven't spoken to a child in a long time, or they're going through a divorce. That's darkness. But didn't we learn from Einstein way back last year that there is no measurement of darkness? All darkness is the absence of light. You could be that light. Imagine that. Little old you, little old Dave. Well, he's not little. His wife Sylvia, right? Peggy, right? Bob over there, Marion, even Scruffy the dog here. Be that light. What a great gift that is to people. Next phrase, and it goes on, it says, and where there is sadness, let me sow joy. Let me explain something, boys and girls. Joy is not happiness. Even the founding fathers, when they wrote the Constitution, said the pursuit of happiness. They didn't say the pursuit of joy. Happiness comes from when Peggy made this pie, right? She's happy she made it and shared it with the group, right? Happiness is Lady Diana and I are going to get married, or we're out for the day or doing something, right? Happiness is your grandchildren come running in the door and they jump on you. Grandpa, whatever it is, okay? But joy is internal. Happiness is external. Joy is something you have to feel all the time. What I love about Diana is she doesn't bring joy. She is joy. Think of that on the way home. So each of us, we talk about vibes and words. Joy has to be in us. You can't get joy like you can get happiness. Joy is an internal feeling because of the light of the word, of the bread, of being prayer. Joy fills us. And then we can become that instrument of peace. We have to be joyful in all circumstances, St. Paul tells us. In all circumstances. And I know a lot of you are going through some tough times, and it's not easy. But we have to be joyful. We can't confuse that with happiness. You can't say, oh, if this happens to me, I'll be joyful. No, you have to be joyful before that wonderful thing happens to you. You have to be joyful before the grandchildren come running into the house. You have to be joyful. And how do you get that joy? By connecting with whatever it is that you believe in and being the best. If you're going to be an atheist, be the best atheist. If you're going to be a bi, be the best bi person. If you're going to be into the word, be the best word. If you're going to be a Christian, be the best Christian. But give up self and take on the interest of somebody else listening. St. Francis, the last part of the prayer says, O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. Here we are again, giving ourselves to someone else. But most of us, we don't want to console, we want to control. We want people to do it our way. They're having a problem, they're going through a divorce, they're going into a business, they're going into college, all these things. And instead of us consoling them and listening to them and helping them and understanding them, we just sit there with ears closed because we can't wait to tell them what they should do. Better to console someone than to be consoled. Think about that the next time your niece or your neighbor or someone asks you or just says, gee, I got to talk to you about something. The prayer goes on, the second half of it says, not so much seek to be understood, but to understand. But to understand. Do we understand people? No. Look at Facebook. And I'm going to end it right there. We don't understand people. We put up walls. We put up bars. We put up things because we don't want to get into it with them. But try to understand someone. Try to understand where they're coming from, their life situations growing up before you lay the gauntlet down. This prayer challenges all of us, myself included, to grow, to be more, not to say, this is the way I am. It goes on to the last part of the prayer of St. Francis, and it says, seek not so much to be loved, but to love. We've covered that. People, I want to be loved. I want to meet somebody. I want to be loved. I want to be loved. You want to be loved? Then love. You reap what you sow. But don't seek so much to be loved, but to love. It doesn't always mean in the romantic way. In generosity, okay? John 15, verse 9. As the Father has loved me, so I love you. Think about that. Jesus loved his disciples, and it comes down as much as the Father loved him. Think about some of these things. I don't care where you sit spiritually. This is good stuff. And then the last part, for it is in giving that we receive, it is pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life forever, without pain, without agony, without tears, no more gnashing of teeth. So the St. Francis prayer challenges us to think more about others than ourselves and to console people, to understand them, and to love them, to get rid of despair, fill it with hope, to get rid of hatred, fill it with love. And here's something we learned on retreat, and I'm going to use this because it fits perfectly with the topic today. I'm going to throw these two words out at you. One is called dystole, and the other one is called systole. And these are not Greek philosophers. These are the two beats of the human heart. The dystole brings the blood in. The systole pumps it out. Go back to St. Francis. It's not enough to pray, but to be prayer. So why am I using the human heart? Because when we listen to God, like Father Dave told us, he was working with an older priest back in the day, and Father Dave said, I'm having a hard time with this silent prayer. I feel like I want to say something. And the older priest said to him, why do you have to say something? Why can't you just listen? So in this prayer of St. Francis also calls us to listen. So when you want to be the prayer, when you want to be the bread, be the word, be the Bible, then it comes right back to these two words of the human heart. Because the dystole is the prayer coming in, and the systole is you taking that and bringing it out to the world. And you get the human heart. In comes the faith, out goes the love. In comes the faith, out goes the love. In comes the faith, out goes the love. It's only two beats of the human heart. And look what that does. We all need to bring it in and then to pump it out. Our takeaway is by a Dutch person, a woman, and she and her family actually, during World War II, helped Jews escape Nazi persecution. And her name is Corrie ten Boom, and she was born in 1892, and she died in 1983. She lived a long life. And her thing is this: is prayer your steering wheel or your spare tire? Do you let prayer, things like the prayer of St. Francis, guide you? Or do you just go and grab it when you're stuck in a ditch? Remember, disto, 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 disto. Prayer is my steering wheel. And I hope this prayer of St. Francis will encourage all of you to be on the steering wheel, going forward, and in that forwardness, touching the lives of others and bringing to them the opposite of what they're feeling, whether it's hatred, despair, doubt, injury, and all of those things. Be the light. Take the challenge. Be the heartbeat. I want to thank you all for joining me again. I should be here next week. I might have a challenge, but we'll see how the week goes. And remember, be yourself because everyone else is taken. Thank you, Jock. Thank you, Peggy, for coming in. We appreciate it. Great job. Thank you, George, by the door. Jock, why don't you spin the vinyl? Bye-bye.